Hello, Kevin, and
Hi,
welcome
Irina.
to the Event and Stock e-conference. Yes, very glad to have you here with us today. You were supposed to be here in person, but unfortunately it didn't work out, so we have you remotely. And today we are going to talk about how to prove the value of events to clients. Before we begin, I just want to introduce you briefly. You are the Director of Ideas and Innovation at the Experiences the Marketing. You have been a significant player with some of the world's most respected marketing services groups, including Interpublic, Grey, and Staci. Now you work closely with a vast range of companies and brands, helping them understand and then drive business growth. You are a long-standing disruptor and thought leader, now investor, speaker, strategic consultant, and relationship manager with a huge catalog of success behind you. But it's the future that interests you the most. Having explored every discipline within the marketing mix, you have a rare understanding of every conceivable touch point between a brand and its most valuable audience. Your passion and enthusiasm for driving growth is second to none. The rules of this are simple. Business growth starts with personal growth. We need to treat people as people, entertain them, educate them, connect them with each other, and add value to their lives. Would you like to add anything? Any businesses you are
Yeah,
advising?
I guess I used to be 100% in the events industry, working with George B. Johnson, Jack Morton, and I spent maybe 12, 15 years doing that. And since I've left that, 100% event business, I still believe and invest in events. So over the last 4 years, we've created a whole range of events aimed at Muslim market. We've created the Muslim Shopping Festival, which is at Olympia, which attracts around 25,000 people. We've created the Halal Food Festival at Tobacco Dock, which attracts 22,000 people. And we created the Eid Festival at Westfield, which our last outing, we attracted 200,000 people. And now at Blueprints, where I'm the CEO, we're creating an event called the World Indigenous Forum, which is going to attract between 15 and 25,000 people in a virtual sense. So I believe in the power of events. I believe in the power of events to drive business, as everyone does. I think, as I think we've said before, events for me, certainly with governments, brands, corporations, countries, regions, they tend to be an afterthought or a little secret that they don't want to tell anyone about, because we drive massive business growth. And that was always what I was interested in. It's that personal interaction. That's where growth comes from. Those relationships that you can't get anywhere else. And yes, online is great, but it's not as good as in person.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about live events specifically and how to prove the value of events to clients, because right now clients have been experimenting with live events. Some of them have been seeing also the positive results of live events, which cut on travel, and they're still able to achieve the objectives. But we also miss live events. So my first question to you is, what is the current sentiment towards hosting live events? And despite the government regulations where events are allowed to take place up to a certain number of attendees?
Yeah. I think there's a general nervousness in the marketplace for live events. I think that most brands, countries, companies, as you're experiencing in Switzerland, are a bit nervous of putting people in a room and the consequences of that happening. I think there's going to be a nervousness. What are we in now? We're in August. I would think this nervousness is going to last us another 5 or 6 months, 7 or 8 months. I think someone's going to break the trend as soon as we're allowed to do those things under government legislation. I think international travel is an issue. Putting people in a long, thin tube where they're breathing each other's air is going to be an issue. And I think putting people in rooms is going to be an issue. Yes, we're going to have social distance, and yes, it's all going to get back to normal. But there's a general nervousness in the marketplace to do that. It's happening slowly, but the brands that are doing it are taking very carefully, because it's not just the brands are being careful, it's the audiences are being careful.
Yes. Yeah. Safety measures need to be put in place, and if the audience doesn't want to come, it is very difficult for the brands also to justify their spend on an event.
It's not just, it's just the world is in that nervous place. I don't know if you know, but England are playing Iceland in football coming up. And, some of the Icelandic players and some of the English players don't want to travel with the team. They don't want to get infected. They don't want to miss the start of the Premier League season for their actual clubs. So, 5 or 6 of them are deciding not to travel. Now, that's in an environment where everyone's being tested and there's going to be a bubble around the thing. It's happening around the world, and we can't deny it and we can't ignore it. We just have to be very careful and take it very slowly.
Yeah. And now, clients realize the value of online meetings and events. It saves time and money on logistics. And do you think that this tendency will remain and will grow?
Are you talking about online?
Online events, yes.
Yeah.
But now we're experimenting and seeing the positives of it. So it will take the money from the live element.
So I think if you'd have asked me 4 months ago, I would have said, yes, online, they're great. It's going to be amazing. And we're going to go forward into a new digital revolution. But having sat on Zoom calls for the last 5 or 6 months, everyone's now coming to the end of that love affair with Zoom. Everyone is saying, who I'm talking to, I wish we could have a meeting. We just need to connect with each other. We just want to get back in touch with each other. So, yes, we've accelerated that thing that we do, that digital thing that we do, that virtual thing that we do. And I think that's interesting, and it's going to add something to our live events. But I think at the heart of it is still people are social. People want to meet people. Our biggest driver is, we're social beings. We want to meet. We want to network. And all those things are true. And I think that what we're going to do, and I've spoken about this before, even before the lockdown, I think we need to think about our audience cleverly. We need to think about our audience in more of a way, in a more detailed way than they're just a bunch of people who do a thing. And I was talking before the lockdown about how we could extend the life of an event to meet people's needs. We often run events that last for 4, 5, 6 hours. And we expect people to turn up at 9 o'clock, go through the registration process, listen to speakers on a platform, ask a few questions, and then go off at 4 or 5 o'clock and go back to their lives. But I don't think it's going to be like that. I think this has taught us a thing. I think, what we're going to be able to do is create an event that is live and online all at the same time. So if you're in your office, you could watch the warm-up, you could register online. You don't need to be at the thing. We can do digital registrations, stop printing badges. It's a complete waste of time. We can all have digital badges on our phone. We could listen to the event in our office online while we're, doing other things. We don't have to be tied to a room for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. So we can go to the thing, we can watch, we can turn up to the speakers we want, we can change the way that we program events, and then we can ask questions online as we're going in, we can watch speakers, we can download their speeches, and then as we're leaving the event, we can still be watching. And I think that building a more holistic approach to the way people live their lives and the way people run their businesses is going to be more realistic for our audiences than trying to get them there in the morning, keep them there all day. I think we've got to think about when I used to work on the McDonald's business, they talk about day parts. This is what we do at this time. This is what we do at this time. This is what we don't have to do everything at the same time. And I think that's going to be an interesting development.
Absolutely. So going to the next question, I just would like to say that everyone who is watching us now, if you have a question for Kevin, please ask your question in the comments section.
Hello, everyone.
In 3 words, what do live events mean for you?
I used to make jokes about this. So I think for me personally, it's massive business growth. I think you can get farther, faster with event marketing than you can in any other discipline. And I'm including advertising. I think that all relationships, all business relationships are a version of your personal relationships. And you don't have personal relationships where you don't have a real relationships. They're everything. They're intimate, they're close, they're emotional. And I think live events do that better than any other marketing discipline. So for me, the 3 words are massive business growth.
I love it. Yeah, it's a good quote for Instagram.
TikTok, let's get on there. We're all addicted. Come on.
And do you feel that in the current climate, event professionals will need to reassure their clients about the value of live events? Because I think that was a discussion a couple of years ago, and I know that last year was one of the best for many agencies, that live events are back, the money is there, but now it's gone, and we are just starting from zero. So we would need to do it again or reassure the clients about the value of live events?
I actually think that clients would have by now realized the value of live events. I think not having live events, not having that interaction, that personal relationship with clients, with customers, with their most important audiences is going to pinpoint the value of live events. And I think that any agency worth its salt, any business worth its salt has already realized that. I don't think we need to highlight that anymore. What we do need to highlight and what we do need to do is, as I said before, think around the problem. Think around the problem of bringing people to a thing for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, and think around how creatively, the events industry is, as I've said 101 times before, is a bunch of creative problem solvers. That's what they do. You give them a problem and they will find a solution. And remarkably, touch wood, it works every time. So I think they've got to think about how they stage events differently, how they incorporate the way the world has changed. But I think every client out there realizes the value of live events because they haven't been having live events. And it must be reflective of their, where their businesses are.
Yeah. And so a lot of clients, they like to see data, and data can help showcase to clients the importance of live events, business travel, and the economic impact for destinations. So what is the right data to present to clients to prove the value of live events?
So I think there's 2 answers, and bear with me while I get back on the soapbox I've been on for the last, I don't know, when I started in the events industry, I've been on this soapbox probably 15, 16 years. We, as an industry, so there's a macro answer, a big answer, and a micro answer, a small answer. There's something we can do as an industry and something we need to do as individuals. I think the big answer is we need to have a system of measurement that is industry-wide, that measures the same thing every time in the way that advertising measures its results. I used to, when I was keynote speaking for the event industry, I used to say the same thing all the time, that advertising created a measurement model that was about eyeballs watching TV programs. And in the early days, you kept a diary and told the advertisers what programs you were watching, and they extrapolated that into what advertising you'd seen. Now it's digital. You can see who's watching what, and you can measure that accurately. And again, that's just, it's not causation. It's, measuring advertising output is, you've seen it, but did that make you buy the product? They're saying roughly, because they're collating the data. It's collation, not causation. So the sales go up, you saw the advert, therefore those two are linked. It's not real, it's just imagined. It's just predicted. But we as an industry don't do that. We don't say we held a conference for the Ford sales force, and after that, in the 6 weeks that when we had the best 6 weeks of our lives, we don't say it was down to the Salesforce conference, because we don't collate that material, and we've got to. We as an industry have got to start collecting data, and we've got, no matter what agency you work for, what company, what business, what event company, we need to measure the same thing all the time. Advertising has done it since whenever, 59. We need to do it, because that's where clients make decisions. And that's where, boards of directors make decisions. Does this work? Are we going to drive sales? If you look at P&G know for every dollar they spend on advertising, they're going to get that back in revenue. They don't actually know that, but they've been keeping records since 1959. They can correlate those two numbers. We need to do the same. And if you're an individual working in the industry, you need to start measuring something. It sort of doesn't matter what you measure, but you need, at the end of the day, to say to your client, you spent that and we gave you back that. There needs to be some relationship between what they've spent and what you've done. You need to measure something, whether it's sales or whether it's emotion or whether it's, eyeballs. It sort of doesn't matter, as long as you always measure the same thing. And as long as you're saying to your client, what is it you're trying to achieve? Okay, we're going to measure that. And if you start doing that, even in a 1-2 man business, you will start changing the way the clients view you. I've worked with enough big brands, global brands, that have said, okay, we spent 2 million on that event. What did we get back? And in big businesses in big events that I wasn't involved in, the answer was, well, we don't know. We didn't measure anything. You can't afford that to happen. Businesses, brands, corporations can't afford to spend money without knowing what effect that has. And even if your client says, we don't want to measure that, or we shouldn't measure that, you need to measure it for your own good. You need to prove that you added value. You need to prove that if you weren't in the room doing the thing you did, that business wouldn't have done the thing it did. And that's where you've got to just stand up and literally and figuratively be counted.
Yeah. And what do you think about the comparison? So, for example, as a company, all the activities that you run throughout the year, and you compare your event to your activity, to the marketing activity, you compare your event to the sales calls.
Yeah.
Just having the comparison approach can help to measure.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've always done badly is, and I use the word advisedly, demand data from our clients. We've always been a bit shy or a bit reticent about saying, okay, you want us to drive sales, you need to give us sales data. You want us to change opinions, you need to give us data. You want us to, you need to look at what channels are effective for you. So we need to be aware of what channels you're using and what results they're producing. We are a massive industry, and I can't remember what the number is, but we've been pushing it through LinkedIn, 90 billion, a 90 billion pound a year industry. The value to the exchequer, the value to the UK government, I'm talking about UK now, is we've said around 90 billion. That is an enormous industry. That's bigger than manufacturing. It's bigger than farming. We have a dramatic effect on what companies do, and we need to push our credibility, and we need to have proper data. Yes, confidentiality. Yes, clients don't like to share it, but we need to start, inverted commas, demanding it, because it's only by doing that that we can show true value. It's only by doing that that we can actually move clients to, advocate on our behalf and push what we're doing and make it part of a real marketing mix. We're still seeing a bit of the poor relations. Sometimes I even heard it last week, we're the party people. I've never been a party person. I wouldn't even know what a party was, obviously in my social life. But, trade shows, conferences, seminars, skill-based training, all of those things, sporting activity, festivals, those things have a dramatic effect. That's why brands invest in them. Even though we're not keeping data, they know what effect we have. We need to start joining up the dots and, completing that circle of information so that we know what we're doing and we can prove what we're doing through data.
And a part of data, what other actions can event professionals share with their clients to prove the value of live events?
Well, it's that question.
A part of data, yeah.
It's that question. It's when we run this event, when it's all over, what would you have liked to have happened? What effect will this thing have on your business? That's what we need to measure. If it's more sales, we find a way of measuring it. If it's emotion, we find a way of tracking it. If it's eyeballs, we find a way of measuring it. We can find a way. There's enough skills in our industry. There's enough brilliant people, especially now, we've got planning departments, insight departments in big agencies. We can find a way of measuring most things. And I would suggest everything. But we need to start asking our clients what they want us, what result this thing is going to have. Even those giant set piece events, opening ceremony of the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games, there is results to be had there. People don't just spend money to make people feel good. They want something to have moved. They want a position to change. They want an audience to be engaged. They want sales to increase. They want emotion to have been moved. They want people to support programs that, all of those great things that we've seen in our lives, those things that have really touched our hearts. And it doesn't matter whether whether we're talking about, I don't know, whatever it was, the 1980s Live Aid. Those Live Aid concerts were an event. Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, that amazing speech, I Had a Dream, that was at an event. That moved people. Events move people. They move people to action. They move people to engagement. They move people to support. That's what we do. Now, we need to find a way of tracking that for our clients, because that's how we prove value.
Before we go to our next question, I want to read one question from the audience. Heidi from the Mice Guru. In the same line, do you feel like acknowledging the nervousness in the first place is more beneficial than pushing through safety precautions on offer?
Yeah, I think that we are flexible, adaptive. We're event professionals, or you lot are event professionals. And I don't know a problem that we haven't been able to solve. And I don't know a situation where we haven't triumphed. I've personally done events in the middle of Africa or in the middle of the desert in Saudi Arabia. So there isn't almost a challenge that we can't overcome. And creating a ring of confidence around our clients' events and assuring them that we know how to behave and we know how to create events that are safe is the first step, because it will help them take that step and commission events. Look at what's going on. It's more girls than boys, but without being too sexist, even places that are doing massage and beauty treatments. And I saw a tanning salon down the road the other day that's reopened with okay, we must be able to convince our clients that we know how to handle groups of people and we know how to treat them safely. And as I said at the start, there is nervousness, but you're right, we need to acknowledge that, and we need to have a suite of solutions that we can put in place for individual clients and individual audiences that reassures them that we know what we're doing. And yes, there are going to be some early adopters who are going to jump into that. And we just have to trumpet that and make sure that people know what we're doing and know what we're achieving on behalf of clients.
Okay. And how to take place again. So, because now, for example, what we hear about online events is that they are 3 to 4 times bigger than the live events. So, for example, the customer acquisition can move online. We've learned how to grow awareness with online events and the branding, for example. So what are the new opportunities with online events when customer acquisition, for example, can be done online? What's new? What's so unique?
I think we've sort of already covered this, but I'll say it again for emphasis. I think it's, online events have been great, and it's made us think about the world in a different way. Just in terms of working with sponsors and, on an online event, you just build them an area. It really doesn't cost that much. But in a live event, you have to have a room, and the room has to be paid for, and the people have to, it's a complicated procedure. So we've got to take the best of online and we've got to weld it together with the best of in person. Now, that's not a hard job for people in the events industry. They know how to do that, but they've just got to realize that in person and online are the same thing. We don't think of, I don't know, let's have an example. We navigate between social media and in-person conversations. They're just all part of our lives now. And I think as an event industry, we've got to look at online and events as one thing. What is here it is. When you're in an advertising agency, you look at your client brief and you look at the audience you're trying to reach, and you work out the best mix of media. You don't just buy the middle spot of the News at 10 because it's got the biggest audience. You look at finding the right media for your client. It may be the Sun, it may be GQ, it may be the middle spot at News at 10, or it may be, I don't know, after Naked Attraction. It depends who your audience is. And I think we've got to look at that media mix for us. What is the best way to say the thing we're saying or do the thing we're doing for the audience we're trying to get to? Is it online? Is it live? Or is it a combination of the two, which is what I think we're going to be? And I don't want to call it hybrid because I think, we all live hybrid lives. We're online and we're offline all the time. We don't talk about hybrid for us. I think we've got to stop using that thing because I think it's a distant thing. I think event professionals have got to be as proficient as doing virtual events as they are in doing live events, and not see them as one is better or worse than the other. It's the appropriate medium to get to our clients. It's the appropriate medium to get to our audience, and it's the appropriate medium to deliver results for our clients, I think.
Okay. So on purpose, I haven't indicated in the session title the value of what events, live or virtual. But yeah, all virtual events also have value. And now the more we do virtual events, the higher the expectations are. And we realized that virtual events are not cheap.
No.
And in some instances, they can also be as expensive as live events when you look at the production value. And as you said, if it's an event that is where you have to extend the event life cycle, so a lot of financial investment has to go into that. So what are your thoughts about proving the value of online events to clients where costs can be as high as of live events?
I think I suppose, what was it? No, 2007, 2008, when the financial crash came, and we were all looking at virtual events, and there was that explosion of social media. You can nail the explosion of Twitter, certainly, and Facebook, to the 2008 crash, and there's a correlation and a causation between those two things. People realized that people around them were telling lies. It doesn't matter whether it's the government or whether it's a business. They realized that they've been fed a load of rubbish, and what they needed to do was know more people. And that just happened to be when Twitter and Facebook really took off, because you needed to know more people like you, and you connected on. And then businesses started to think about Facebook, and they started to think about Twitter, and now Instagram and TikTok. And they mistakenly believed that it was free. Well, of course, the platform is free to start with, but then you realize there's a business charge for those social platforms, and actually managing that platform and running those campaigns costs money. And it's the same with virtual events. Yes, virtual events can be as much as real, in-person events. And the issue is that the audience wants it for nothing. Now, that is difficult. People think it's just like online music. It's like Spotify. People think that they should have it for nothing. Because it costs money, you have to find other ways of paying for it, which is through sponsor value. And I think that is the interesting task for us, to ensure that we are providing amazing virtual experiences that are as engaging as in person, but again, driving people to that social need for interaction and in-person events. I don't think, in 2007, 8, 9, when we were almost forced to do virtual events, and everyone thought they were amazing and were building incredible platforms from scratch, and there was a big push to do that. And again, even when the financial imperative for doing those virtual events stopped, they could have continued because they were slightly cheaper than in-person events, but actually people wanted to meet, and then they met in different scenarios. But it's the how, proving value for a virtual event is a lot easier than an in-person event, because you know the clicks, you know what they're watching, you know how long they stayed, you know what they saw, you know what the takeaways were, you know what their reaction has been. And we've got to weld that. If people think that live events aren't a data business, they're in the wrong business. And that's where the real value is. It's collecting that data and being able to manage that data on behalf of our clients. We've got to learn to measure better, and we've got to learn to collect data better, because there's no shortage of available data for live events. We just don't try hard enough. We've got to get data. Clients value data because it tells them something, and there's a relationship between data and the way people react, and the messages you can create, and the direction you can take things in. And that really is the circle completed. We've been pushed into online and virtual events, and it's a data-rich environment, and we've got to use that now for our in-person events. In-person events are a data-rich environment, and the data is the key.
Yeah, it's a very fresh look on this point. Yeah. And our last question. So if anyone from the audience has a question, then please, that's your last chance to ask Kevin. What is your forecast for corporate events in 21? And that's also including international, for example, incentives or product launches.
Yeah, I think we're going to return to some form of normality through 2021. I think we as an industry and clients should be planning those things for the back end of 2021. I think that it's there is going to be a return to live events. I don't see any reason, and I don't doubt that we're all going to get back there, because I think if you take the temperature of the world as I have been over the last 4 months, people are longing for that personal interaction. They're longing for those things, and the value of those is unquestionable. We've got to get better, as I said, about melding those two, virtual and in-person, together. We've got to get better at collecting our data to prove our case to our clients. But I think, by the back end, by the midpoint of 2021, we're going to be back to some sort of level of income that people can be happy with.
That's a forecast, and I'm sure our audience is very happy to hear that, and because we are all missing live events very much.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's the end of our interview, but can you please share how people can get in touch with you if they have more questions or if they want to work with you?
It's very easy. I'll give you a very short, I'm on Instagram, but it's a very long name. It's all my names joined together, which is horrendous. I wish I'd never done it, but I can't change it now. And you can share it, Irina, because you've got it. It's
I will share all your updates. So
Kevin Louis Ferguson Jackson.
The quote message is also going on Instagram, so you can find Kevin through this post.
Yeah. And I'm all over LinkedIn, so connect with me on LinkedIn. It's much easier. It's Kevin Jackson. And you'll see a little bald guy there with glasses. That's me.
Excellent, Kevin. Thank you so much for this insightful interview and the positive forecast for next year, because that's, I think, we all wanted to hear, at least from after experiencing the past 4 months. And for everyone joining us, please stay online, because at 4 o'clock we're continuing with our next session about combining content with cause, how this can boost your virtual events. So Kevin, thank you very, very much. Thank you, everyone.
I'll do anything for you. I think what you do is amazing, and you need plenty of applause for doing what you do. I think it's great.
Thank you very much. It means a lot to me, because, Kevin, I know many people don't know it actually, but I moved to London in 2011, and you were the first event professional when I went to Convex and attended your session, and then I quoted you in my dissertation. So you're one of those people who really influenced my career, and you were like a mentor to me for many years. So I value this relationship very much. So thank you very much.
That's cool.
Okay, Kevin, so I wish you a good afternoon and excellent weekend, and we speak soon.
Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.